The moment I entered the horror game, it assigned me an NPC boyfriend. Every other player who saw him gasped. He must look terrifying. Good thing I'm blind. I can't see a thing. Late at night, my new boyfriend's icy kisses trailed from the side of my neck, moving lower. Tentacles wrapped around my limbs, holding me completely still. Tears welled in my eyes as a single, confused thought crossed my mind. Wait, is this really not a dating sim? The moment I received the invitation to the horror game, my normally arrogant stepsister had a complete meltdown. I'm too young. I don't want to go die in that stupid game. Her reaction was understandable. The horror game had appeared in our world 3 years ago. Anyone who received an invitation had to participate. And of those who participated, very few ever came back alive. My stepmother's gaze landed on me, her voice dripping with malice. Don't you worry, Ashley. We'll have your sister go for you. The invitations were transferable, as long as the other person agreed. I pressed my lips together. I won't go. My stepmother sneered. If you dare refuse, I'll have Mr. Evans cut off your mother's medical payments. My stepsister's eyes lit up, and she eagerly piled on. You wouldn't want your mother to die because of you, would you? My hands clenched into fists, my knuckles turning white. A little while ago, my mother had been diagnosed with cancer. My deadbeat dad, feeling a shred of guilt for abandoning us after he struck it rich to be with my stepmother, had offered to pay her medical bills. But this time, the costs had exceeded what he was willing to pay, which was why I'd come to the Evans house to ask for help in the first place. I knew my dad's character. Between me and my stepsister, he'd choose her without a second thought. I lowered my head and whispered, "Fine. I'll go." The next second, an invitation was thrust into my hand. It felt deathly cold, like touching a block of ice. The gold foil letters on it were slightly raised, spelling out 5 words: Operation Blind Date. So, that was the name of the horror game I was about to enter. The game would begin at midnight. I sat on my bed, waiting quietly. Since I can't see, my hearing is exceptionally sharp. I could hear my dad and his family whispering in the hallway. My stepmother sounded worried. If Chloe actually makes it out of the horror game, you don't think she'll come after us, do you? The ones who survive get game rewards. They become stronger than normal people. My stepsister scoffed. What's there to be afraid of? She's blind. She'll be lucky to survive the first day. There's no way she's coming back. Ma tête sighed. I know I've wronged her, but I don't regret it. In my heart, you two are so much more important than she is. I couldn't hear the rest of what they said. The clock struck midnight, and I was transported from my warm bedroom to the front of a large mansion. A cold wind howled. A black cat perched on the roof, its cries bizarre and piercing, filling the air with a sense of dread. A mechanical, electronic voice echoed in my mind. Welcome, player, to the instance. Operation Blind Date. Clear condition. Achieve an affection score of 80% or higher with your blind date. Note: achieving 100% affection will grant an additional reward. Mission rank, S-Class. I heard a burly man cursing nearby. How is this an S-Class mission? I thought the newbie levels were supposed to be easy. If I'd known, I never would have taken the $3 million my boss offered me to take his place in this game. So he was a new player like me, here on someone else's invitation. Except he had volunteered. A girl laughed mockingly. Everything has a price. Now you get to pay it. What the hell did you just say? All right, Nina, stop fighting with him. A veteran player mediated. Let's get moving. I tapped my cane, listening to their footsteps as I followed them forward. From the jumble of steps, I figured there were 7 of us in total. And somewhere we couldn't see, the live stream comments were flying. Oh man, this instance? These players are screwed. Everyone knows the NPCs in Operation Blind Date are the absolute worst. Whoa, there's a total babe. That's my new wife, right there. Forget it. She's blind. The NPCs will probably eat her alive in minutes. I don't even think the NPCs will have to do anything. That big dude is already giving her a creepy look. I'd only taken a few steps when I felt a malicious gaze slide over me. The big guy's sleazy voice sounded right next to me. Well, look at this, a little blind girl. Even unluckier than me. You're a real looker though. What a waste. The next thing I knew, a greasy hand landed on mine, and his foul, smoky breath washed over my neck. I paled. Don't. He leaned in closer, his stench making me want to gag. Hey little blind girl, stick with me. I'll protect you. It's over. The pretty wifey is gonna get harassed by another player. I can't watch. Get your creepy hands off my wife, you bastard. The next second, I lifted my metal cane. A pain scream echoed through the air. The big guy clutched his leg, grimacing in pain. How dare you hit me? I took a step back and said softly, I told you not to touch me. His eyes widened with a hint of fear when he saw the cane in my hand. Whatever. I don't fight with girls. The live chat exploded. Damn, wifey is fire. Hit me instead. Reward me, please. Ugh, perv in the chat above. I'm different, pulls up pants. After that little incident, none of the other players, new or old, dared to bother me. The game was full of dangers, and none of them wanted to get injured before they even saw a monster. A veteran player knocked on the mansion's front door. An old butler in his 70s or 80s opened it. He was stooped over, and his voice was raspy and hoarse. You must be here for the blind dates with the young masters and mistresses of the Dalton family. Please come in. They've been waiting for you. We followed the butler into the mansion. The young masters and mistresses, the butler mentioned, were sitting on a sofa not far away. The big guy, Tank, saw them and started muttering under his breath. Are you kidding me? Every one of these people is ugly in their own special way. It hurts my eyes just to look at them. How are we supposed to romance them? The live chat agreed. Every time I see these NPCs, I'm disgusted. I need to look at the pretty wife to cleanse my eyes. Wait a minute. Why is one of the NPCs actually good looking this time? He looks kind of familiar. Maybe it's to give our eyes a break. The eldest Dalton son heard Tank's complaint and, with inhuman speed, teleported right in front of him. His voice was chilling, each word deliberate. Who did you say was ugly? Tank jumped, then, feeling embarrassed, puffed out his chest. I was talking about you. It's not illegal to say someone's ugly, is it? The eldest son let out a wild laugh. You said I'm ugly? How dare you say I'm ugly? The more he laughed, the wider his mouth stretched, until it split open all the way to his temples. Inside was a horrifying set of double-rowed teeth that made my skin crawl just hearing about it. Tank sensed trouble and stumbled back a step. But it was too late. The eldest Dalton son had already ripped off his arm in one clean bite. He was about to take another bite when a man in a suit from the Dalton group stepped forward to stop him. Brother, I want this one. You know I have a thing for broken people. Tank clutched his bleeding stump, his earlier bravado gone. When the man in the suit looked his way, he could only whisper, But you're a man. What's wrong with being a man? The suit-clad brother asked with a humorless smile. You have a problem with me? Having learned his lesson, Tank wouldn't dare object. He quickly stammered, No. I love men. Real men, do it with other men. A girl nearby snickered. To save his own skin, that guy would say anything. Seeing this, the other players quickly scrambled to pick their own partners, choosing the Dalton heirs who looked the most approachable. Soon, only I and the last Dalton, the third son, were left in the hall. The sound of leather shoes on the wooden floor echoed with a rhythmic, heavy tread. The sound was so oppressive it made my heart feel strangely tight. I sensed someone had stopped in front of me. One of the other players saw this and sighed softly, as if in mourning for me. He can't be that scary, can he? Amid my curiosity, I felt a wave of relief. Good thing I'm blind. I can't see a thing. Will you be my blind date? The man's voice was as cold as ice, completely devoid of human warmth. The live chat was already lighting virtual candles for me. It's over. The pretty wife probably won't survive the night. For real. In the horror world, the better looking the NPC, the stronger they are. This guy's power level looks off the charts. I had no other choice. I will, I said softly. A cool kiss landed on the back of my hand. This third Dalton son is quite the gentleman, I thought. The next second, something cold, wet, and slimy wrapped around my calf. I froze. What was that? My body reacted before my brain could. My cane was already swinging, striking whatever it was. The new players didn't understand, but the veterans were already mourning me. Tank had just called the eldest son ugly and lost an arm. I had actually hit one of them. I was probably going to lose my life. I thought the same thing. I scrambled backward, gripping my cane tightly, my ears straining to catch any sound from my surroundings. The thing quickly retracted, and an electronic tone sounded in my head. System notice. Affection plus 10. I was stunned. I hit him, and his affection score went up? What kind of logic was that? Meanwhile, in the live chat. Holy shit, the third Dalton son is into that. Ah, wifey, don't reward him. Seriously, he's loving it. Poor wifey, just standing there with her big, confused eyes. I want to nibble her little cheeks. While I was still bewildered, the butler reappeared. He clapped his hands. It seems everyone has found a suitable partner. A very successful blind date indeed. He then addressed us players. I've had the chef prepare a sumptuous dinner for you. Please be sure to join the young masters and mistresses at 6 p.m. This dinner is very important. If you can please them, you will receive a rose. And you should know, the mansion is very dangerous at night. A rose, the symbol of pure love, can protect you and grant you a peaceful night. The players exchanged glances. We all understood this was a trap. After all, getting anything from an instance's NPCs sometimes required paying with your life. It wasn't even 6 p.m. yet. All the players and I had already gathered in the dining room. The servants were bringing out dishes one by one. Nina had a skill that could identify the contamination level of food. If you ate too much contaminated food, you'd lose your mind. And in the game, anyone who couldn't stay sane was as good as dead. She had a sharp tongue but a soft heart, and she quietly warned us. The beef stew has fingers in it. Don't eat it. The shrimp is normal. It's safe. The spaghetti bolognese is tainted. Don't eat it. The seafood risotto is safe. After she finished, I noticed a pattern. Seafood was safe, but the meat dishes were all tainted. The clock struck 6. Our date sat down beside us. Thanks to Nina's warning, we all avoided the contaminated food. However, the Daltons weren't going to let us off that easily. The second son placed a piece of beef on Tank's plate, his voice sickeningly sweet. Honey, this is my favorite beef. You have to try some. Tank didn't dare eat it. He stammered. It has cilantro in it. I don't like cilantro. Honey, do you know what my biggest wish is? Tank instinctively asked. What wish? For the whole world to be covered in cilantro, the second son said with a fake smile. And I have another wish. This time, he didn't beat around the bush. And that is for everyone in the world who doesn't eat cilantro to just die. His voice was filled with killing intent. A shiver ran down Tank's spine. I'll eat it, he said quickly. One by one, the other players were pressured by their dates. Some of the veterans used their skills to deal with it. The new players had no choice but to grit their teeth and eat the contaminated food. One new player was so enthusiastic about eating it that he actually got a rose from his date. When Tank found out, he was filled with regret. He had to eat it either way. If he'd known, he wouldn't have refused. He might have gotten a rose out of it. Of everyone here, I was the only one who hadn't been forced to eat anything by my date. But I could feel the intense gaze of the youngest Dalton son, Jasper, on me the entire time. It was so hot it could almost burn, and I had no idea what he was planning. Afraid he would pressure me like the others, I made the first move and put a shrimp on his plate. Eat some shrimp. Affection plus 10. I blinked, then started eagerly feeding him more food. The subsequent affection points didn't come as easily as before, but all told, I managed to rack up another 8 points. Sometimes people are like that. When they're miserable, they want others to be miserable too. Tank couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up. Young master, don't just eat. You should do something for your girlfriend too. You're right. Hearing that, Tank gave me a malicious grin, probably thinking I was about to face some terrible fate. The next second, his smile vanished. A rose suddenly appeared in Jasper's hand, and he offered it to me. Chloe, you worked hard serving me food. This is for you. I took it and whispered a small thank you. Jasper stared at me, his dark eyes swirling like storm clouds. The rose was as red as blood, making my skin look as white as snow. but my lips were even redder than the rose. Like a cherry hanging on a branch, one gentle bite would release a burst of sweet juice. I want a taste. I felt something cold and soft press against my lips, then gently bite down. He was so close I could smell the faint scent of cedarwood, a familiar scent I felt I knew from somewhere. Sensing my pain, Jasper licked the spot soothingly. His cool breath ghosted across my neck as he whispered hoarsely, "You're sweet." After that, he did nothing else. Everyone at the table was stunned. One player had to eat contaminated food just to get a rose, and I had gotten one so easily. Tank, especially, looked like he was about to lose it. He had spoken up not to be helpful and get Jasper to give me a rose, but to cause trouble for me. Tank wouldn't give up. "Young master, she's too thin. You should give her some meat. That bowl of beef stew looks pretty good." Jasper's brow furrowed, his lips turning down in displeasure. "Are you telling me what to do?" Tank flinched, feeling as if he'd been targeted by a venomous snake. He suddenly regretted it. Jasper's kind attitude towards me had given him the false impression that he was an easygoing person. But who in these instances was ever a pushover? He hurriedly said, "No, of course not." It was too late. Jasper looked at the man in the suit, his voice dripping with undisguised malice. "Second brother, your date likes beef stew. You should give him some more." The second son chuckled. "No problem." Tank saw the fingers floating in the red broth and shook his head in horror. "No, I don't want to eat it, mph." The man in the suit wasn't listening. He grabbed the bowl of stew and started shoving it into Tank's mouth. I gained a new understanding of my date. He was fiercely protective. That was a good thing. I could feel 3 pairs of burning eyes on me as soon as I had the rose in my hand. Those 3 still hadn't gotten roses of their own. From any angle, robbing a blind girl of her rose seemed far less costly than trying to earn one from an NPC. But now things were different. As long as the other players had any sense, they wouldn't dare make a move on me. All I had to do was focus on dealing with the NPCs in the instance. After dinner, the butler, who had been gone for a while, reappeared. "It's getting late. Our guests should return to their rooms to rest. You have 3 more days to win the hearts of our young masters and mistresses. Good luck to you all." The players all looked grim. The instance was only giving us 3 days, far too little time. If we couldn't successfully romance our dates within those 3 days, death would be waiting for us. I went up to the second floor. A few seconds later, I heard a scream from a room not far away. What is that? Don't bite my leg." The eldest Dalton daughter's voice followed. "Darling, that's just my little pet. It doesn't like it when people enter a room without a rose." That was a new player. The monster kept by the eldest daughter had chewed off half his leg, and he was terrified. "What do I have to do for you to give me a rose?" The eldest daughter said ambiguously, "Let's talk about it inside." A veteran player shook his head. The NPCs in S-class instances always had a variety of ways to torture people. Who knew if that new player would make it out of that room alive tomorrow? As for the other veteran player who hadn't gotten a rose, he was more than capable of handling those monsters. Thanks to the rose Jasper had given me at dinner, I made it into my room without any trouble. The room was eerily quiet, with a thick smell of blood in the air. If I listened closely, I could hear a faint sigh. There was something else in this room besides me. It seemed to be lamenting the fact that I had a rose, which meant it couldn't harm me. I wasn't sure if being blind was a good or bad thing at this moment. On one hand, I wouldn't see anything gruesome. But the human imagination is a powerful thing, and sometimes what the mind conjures up is 1,000 times more terrifying than any real monster. I tried my best not to think about it, quickly washed up and lay on the bed to rest. Worried the rose might fall off, I tied it to my wrist with 2 hair ties. After a while, the thing couldn't hold back any longer. It perched at the head of my bed, getting closer and closer, and then blew a stream of air onto my neck. Its breath was freezing, and goosebumps erupted all over my skin. My cane was beside me. I retreated to the corner of the room and swung it toward the creature. It let out a shriek and didn't dare come any closer. It spoke. "Big sister, the rose on your wrist is so pretty. Can you give it to me?" The voice was innocent and childlike, which made it feel deeply unsettling and strange. No. Its voice instantly became shrill. Why not? Because, I said, lowering my gaze. The person I like gave it to me. System notice. Affection plus. Live chat. Wifey knows how to play the game. Jasper must be so happy. My wifey is so devious, I love it. I blinked in confusion, wondering uncertainly, is Jasper in this room too? No, that was impossible. When I came in, I only heard my own footsteps. My gaze flickered, and my unfocused eyes instinctively turned toward the door. Is he standing right outside? The little monster's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. But I want it. Sister, please give it to me, I'm begging you. I really, really want it. As time went on, its voice grew more and more piercing. My mind started to feel foggy, and I almost gave in to its demand. I bit down hard on my tongue. The sharp pain brought me back to my senses. I was just about to smack it with my cane. But its voice abruptly stopped, as if someone had grabbed it by the throat. I heard the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Then the window opened, and something was thrown out. Jasper must have done it. I thought back to my first encounter with him, to that cold, soft thing that had wrapped around my leg. Live chat. Jasper, if you have the guts to stand at the door, you have the guts to go inside. Please use your big tentacles to properly punish the pretty wifey. Yeah, Jasper, I hate that you're not man enough. After that, the room was silent. A moment later, I heard footsteps moving away from the door. Jasper was gone. I let out a small sigh of relief. It was 10 o'clock at night. The hallway outside was completely silent. I got out of bed and tiptoed toward the door. Before we went upstairs, the few of us who had gotten roses had made a verbal agreement. While the roses protected us for the night, we would meet at the top of the stairs at 10:05 p.m. to search for clues to clear the instance. This wasn't some dating sim. Trying to win over the NPCs with love was impossible. There had to be some other way to quickly max out the Dalton's affection meters. You actually came? Nina was surprised to see me. There were 4 of us who had gotten roses. One was a new player who had earned his by eating contaminated food. He was too scared to come. He'd said, "You guys go ahead. I have a rose, so I'm safe for tonight. I'm not going to risk my neck with you." That's why Nina was so surprised to see me. After all, I looked even more fragile than that new player. I said softly, "I don't want to leave my fate in someone else's hands." The horror game wouldn't go easy on me just because I was blind. I had to work harder than anyone else just to have a chance at survival. Nina nodded in approval. That's a good attitude to have. An older player named Kyle sneered. Good for what? A blind girl tagging along to find clues is just going to slow us down. Let me be clear. If we run into trouble, I'm not helping you. I bit my lip. I understand. We headed to the study first. Kyle had found out that before old Mr. Dalton passed away, he had left behind a massive collection of jewelry worth hundreds of millions of dollars, hidden somewhere in the mansion. His children had yet to find it. That was why the Dalton heirs, all adults, still lived in the family home. They were desperate to find this treasure. Kyle speculated that if we could help the Daltons find their father's inheritance, their affection meters would quickly fill up, and we could clear the instance. Old Mr. Dalton's study was on the 3rd floor. It hadn't been entered in a long time, so it was covered in cobwebs and had a musty, decaying smell. The study was decorated in an old-fashioned style. Besides a wall-to-wall bookshelf, the most striking feature was an old grandfather clock in the corner, as tall as a person. In the silent room, the ticking of the second hand was sharp and clear, like a death knell, filled with an ominous energy. We all instinctively kept our distance from the clock. Nina and Kyle searched the desk and bookshelves, trying to find useful clues. Since I couldn't see, I used my cane to tap around, checking for any secret compartments. Kyle saw this and frowned. Hey you. Just stand still and don't move. If you break something and attract the Daltons, this whole trip will be for nothing. I whacked my cane against Kyle's shin. Kyle yelped in pain. What are you doing? I said. My cane is very well behaved. It only hits what I want it to hit. You. Nina chuckled. Serves you right for underestimating her. Kyle was about to lose it, but Nina stepped in. All right, Kyle, cut it out. We're here to find clues, not to watch you bully a girl. As a veteran player, Kyle knew how to prioritize. He just grumbled, whatever. I won't stoop to her level. After that, Kyle was much quieter. We all went back to searching for clues. Strange. There are no clues here at all. That can't be right. Kyle had been searching for a long time and found nothing but a mouthful of dust. Nina was in the same boat. Could the clue be hidden in that clock? That was the last thing she wanted. Her veteran instincts told her that clock was hiding something terrifying. Come look at this. I tapped my cane on the floorboards under the desk. The sound it made was unusually hollow, as if there was empty space underneath. Nina heard it and immediately pulled out a dagger to pry up the floorboard. She said with a hint of excitement, "There's something in here." It was a blood-red diary with a black cat drawn on the cover. Its eerie green eyes seemed to move, staring straight at Nina. The gaze was bloodthirsty and menacing. It was as if to say that anyone who read this diary would die from its curse. A shiver went down Nina's spine. She quickly opened the diary, deciding it was better not to look at the cover. Inside was old Mr. Dalton's flamboyant signature. This was indeed his diary. Nina said, "This place is creepy. Let's go back before we read it." Just as she finished speaking, a heavy bell began to toll in the room. We all jumped. It was the top of the hour, and the old grandfather clock was chiming. But each chime was louder than the last, like a summons from the Grim Reaper. The next second, the bottom of the clock swung open, and a big-headed ghost baby crawled out. In that instant, the room felt as cold as a freezer. Nina gasped, "Oh no, it's a demonic doll." The diary must have been what the doll was guarding. By taking it, we had angered it. The demonic doll was fast, catching up to us in seconds. Nina yelled to me, "Chloe, run. We'll handle this." Kyle nodded. "Yeah, we've got this." "Okay. See you in the morning." I knew I would only be a burden if I stayed, so I immediately left. However, my danger was far from over. I had just reached the top of the stairs when someone rushed toward me. He was chanting, "Rose, give me the rose." It was Tank's voice. He sounded completely unhinged. I remembered all the contaminated food he'd eaten today. It was obvious, the contamination had gotten to him, and he'd lost his mind. The stairwell was narrow, and I had nowhere to retreat. He was too close for me to even swing my cane. A cold, sharp blade touched my skin. Tank was trying to kill me. The more dangerous the situation, the calmer I became. I couldn't dodge the knife, so I stopped trying to. My fingers found the small button on my cane. There was a sharp blade hidden inside. It was my last resort. Just as I was about to press it, the blade suddenly moved away. And so did Tank. It seemed like something had wrapped around him. He screamed in terror, "Let me go! Let me go!" The next second, I heard a heavy thud, followed by the sound of cracking bones. Tank's agonizing screams filled the air, one after another. He slowly regained his sanity. "Don't kill me." Before he could finish, his voice was cut off. A few seconds later, the second son's displeased voice rang out. "Jasper, that's my pet. He's my responsibility to discipline. If you kill him, what am I supposed to play with?" Jasper's lips curled into a sneer. "I almost forgot about you. If you can't control your pet, then you can die too." "What are you doing?" "No, we're allies, you can't." "Ah." With another scream, the second son went silent, apparently dead as well. Never thought I'd live to see the day NPCs start killing each other. This is what happens when you piss off a guy who's madly in love. I sensed someone approaching. The familiar scent of cedarwood filled my nose. It was Jasper. I followed Jasper back to his room. He said he wanted to treat the wound on my hand. I would have much preferred to go back to my own room and rest. I wasn't seriously injured, it was just a small cut on the back of my hand from the tip of the knife. It would have healed on its own in a little while. But my intuition told me it was best not to refuse Jasper's kindness, especially since he had just killed a man and a monster. After we entered his room, Jasper had me sit on the edge of his bed. For a long time he didn't move. The room was so quiet I could only hear the sound of our breathing. I couldn't help but speak up. "Jasper, didn't you say you were going to treat my wound?" Jasper finally spoke. "Yes, I'm going to treat Chloe's wound." I didn't know that Jasper had been staring at my wound the whole time. On my pale skin, the streak of red was startling, almost impossible to look away from. The bead of blood gave off a sweet scent, tempting one to have a taste. Gradually, his gaze grew dark and unreadable. Suddenly, I felt something wet lick my wound. I looked down, my eyelashes fluttering. "You," Jasper said calmly. "I'm treating your wound." So weird. Perhaps this was just how horror game NPCs treated injuries. But his breath, light as a feather on the back of my hand, and the way he was licking me, it was making me a little uncomfortable. I urged him gently. "Well, can you hurry up?" Jasper looked up at me, his eyes locking onto mine. My own eyes, unfocused and innocent, stared back at him blankly. So obedient. His gaze darkened, and he said in a husky voice, "Okay." At that moment, I was completely unaware of what was about to happen. It wasn't until he bit my lip that I realized something was wrong. "Jasper MMM." It was too late. He pried my lips apart, his tongue pushing inside, licking and sucking, not missing a single inch. His movements were a bit clumsy, but incredibly forceful. My body went stiff, and I placed my hands on his chest, about to struggle. Just then, the familiar electronic tone sounded in my head. "System notice, affection plus." My hands moved to grip the collar of his shirt, and I stopped resisting. Slender tentacles eagerly wrapped around my wrists, their warm surfaces licking every inch of my skin. A strange sensation began to build inside me. Listening to the constant affection notifications in my head, I felt a little dazed. Is this really not a dating sim? Hiss. Sensing my distraction, Jasper bit my neck punishingly. What happened next was both pleasurable and agonizing. I had never known a night could be so long. As for the live chat, why did it fade to black? I took my pants off for this, and this is what I get. Where's the full scene? Where are the details? Where's the link to subscribe to the premium channel? When I woke up, it was already noon. I was wearing clean clothes and was back in my own bed. If it weren't for my aching body and the affection score, which was now at 70, I might have thought yesterday was all just a dream. The familiar scent of winter cedarwood hung in the air. "Jasper, are you here?" As soon as I spoke, I realized my voice was incredibly hoarse. The culprit was right beside me. He handed me a glass of water. "Drink some water. It'll soothe your throat." The water helped. Jasper then fed me a bowl of porridge, and my strength slowly returned. "This is for you." Suddenly, a bouquet of flowers was placed in my hands. "Are these roses?" Jasper nodded, then remembered I couldn't see and explained, "I saw how much you seemed to like that rose yesterday." A small smile curved my lips, and I placed a kiss on his cheek. "Thank you. I really love them." The tentacles on Jasper's body danced with joy. "I'm glad you like them." The live chat went wild. Holy shit, other players are dying to get one rose. And Jasper just gives her a whole bouquet? You'd think he was running a rose wholesale business or something. I counted. There are 99. Is that a pun for eternal love? Jasper is so down bad. I went downstairs to meet up with Nina and Kyle. Nina was thrilled to see me. "You're alive. That's great. Kyle and I were worried when you didn't show up this morning. We thought something had happened to you." I looked a little uncomfortable. I got held up by a few things. Thankfully, Nina didn't press for details. She quickly updated me on the situation in the house. Tank and his date were missing. The new player who had gotten a rose at dinner yesterday was found dead in his room. He had been disemboweled, blood pooling all over the floor, with splatters even on the ceiling. There was no sign of a rose in his room. I guessed that after eating so much contaminated food yesterday, his mind was gone. When the monster asked for his rose, he hadn't refused. Ironically, the new player who hadn't gotten a rose at dinner had survived. After being bitten by a monster when he entered his room last night, he made a deal with the eldest Dalton daughter. He traded one of his arms for a rose. The pain of losing his arm kept him from falling asleep, so he couldn't be lured by the monster. I asked, "Did you find any useful clues in the diary you found yesterday?" "I was just about to tell you." Nina had gone through all of old Mr. Dalton's diaries and found a clue to the treasure on one of the pages. It was a poem. My treasure lies beneath the sun. The black cat guards it for me. The nightingale sings for me. And the wicked little mouse shall die. Nina said. Kyle and I have already figured out where the treasure is. It's in the sunroom next to the mansion. The black cat is always there, napping in the sun, and a nightingale is always perched nearby. We also found the keyhole. It's under a flower pot. The only thing we're missing now is the key. Speaking of which, Nina sighed. We can only search for the key in the mansion at night. The butler won't let us wander around during the day. But the mansion is incredibly dangerous at night. Without a rose, it's almost impossible to survive. Kyle agreed. And our dates are not easy to fool. It's hard to get a rose without giving up an arm or a leg. Even though a player's injuries would heal upon returning to the real world, in an S-class instance, losing a limb would cut your chances of survival in half. I have roses, I said. Then I added, a lot of them. What? 10 minutes later, both Kyle and Nina had roses. I thought for a moment and decided to give roses to the veteran player who had stayed in his room, and the new player who had survived yesterday. They hadn't helped me, but they also hadn't tried to harm me like Tank had. As fellow humans, I still hoped they could make it out alive. Soon it was evening. As we ate in the dining room, I could feel a low pressure emanating from Jasper. The other players felt it even more acutely. They noticed Jasper's gaze was filled with a hint of killing intent when he looked at them. I put a piece of beef on Jasper's plate. Contrary to yesterday, today's uncontaminated food was the beef. I asked, Jasper, who made you angry? Why did you give the roses I gave you to other people? His voice was dark. If you listen closely, you could even hear a hint of grievance. I lowered my eyes. I'm sorry. They're my friends. When we get married, I hope they can come to our wedding. Jasper cheered up a bit. Chloe, you're already thinking that far ahead? I nodded gently. Jasper didn't pursue the matter of the roses any further. For that meal, the players made it through safely, with no one else getting hurt. Live chat. The pretty wife is such a smooth talker. Jasper. She wants to marry me. She has me in her heart. Roses? What are roses? I don't know. With one word about marriage, I bet Jasper has already planned out their kids' names. That's how lovesick guys are. At 10:05 p.m., Nina, Kyle, and I met at the top of the stairs again. But this time, the veteran player who hadn't come yesterday, Sam, and the new player, Carly, were with us. With roses in hand, their nighttime movements were no longer restricted. We split up. Sam and Carly would search the first floor, while Nina, Kyle, and I would continue searching the third. Nina gave Sam a walkie-talkie. We're looking for a key. If you find any useful clues, contact us. Sam nodded. No problem. We searched the third floor for a long time with no luck. Fortunately, we got good news from Sam. He had found the key. We met up in Sam's room. As soon as we entered, we saw something alive writhing frantically inside a burlap sack. Nina asked, the key you mentioned, it's not that, is it? Sam opened the sack, and a black cat was inside. It was old Mr. Dalton's beloved pet, which often roamed the mansion. On the day we arrived, it had been perched on the roof, its dark green eyes staring coldly at us as it let out an unsettling cry. Sam replied, it's in its stomach. In his second game instance, Sam had received the reward of X-ray vision. The ability allowed him to see if there was anything hidden under an animal's skin besides flesh and blood. It had a limited number of uses, only 3 per instance. So after Nina told him about the clue she found, he had used the ability on the black cat. He didn't dare cut the cat open directly. In a previous instance, he had found a clue inside a rabbit's stomach, but it triggered a curse that almost killed him. He was afraid of triggering another curse. Kyle spoke up. I have a way. He had an item called the weight loss miracle, which was a scented bomb. No matter what a person ate, as long as they smelled the bomb, they would throw everything up. For the past 2 days, he had been using it to vomit up the contaminated food he'd eaten, allowing him to stay sane. Carly was incredibly envious. That's a really useful item. Kyle had the black cat smell the bomb. A short while later, the cat started to vomit. First came fish jerky, then human fingers, then black hair. Finally, it threw up a small box. Luckily, the box wasn't locked. After a quick rinse with water, Kyle opened it. Inside was a key carved with a rose. Kyle looked pleased. Looks like we'll be able to clear this instance tomorrow. I returned to my room and smelled the familiar scent of winter cedarwood. Chloe, I missed you. A fluffy head rested on my shoulder, arms wrapped tightly around my waist. On the surface, Jasper seemed quite harmless. That is, if you ignored the strong smell of blood in the room. While I was gone, he had once again killed the monster hiding in my room, and his methods were no longer gentle. I pretended not to know anything and ruffled his hair. I'm back. Live chat. How does the final boss have two different faces? Where's all that energy from when you were slaughtering monsters? Why are you acting all pitiful now? Monster, you're so high and mighty, taking your bad mood out on me. Why don't you try that on her? You guys just don't get it. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. I suspect you two are about to do something dirty, but I have no proof. Jasper's voice was a bit muffled. But you're going to leave again, aren't you? He held my waist so tightly that our bodies were pressed together, making it a little hard to breathe. My voice grew even softer. We'll always meet again, won't we? Oh, Jasper looked up. You recognized me? I nodded. Your cedarwood scent is exactly the same as Ao's. Ao was a little monster I had raised. He had suddenly appeared at the bottom of our apartment building. According to my friends, his appearance was strange and inspired fear in anyone who saw him. Because he was injured and weak, he was often bullied by other kids. I felt sorry for him, so I adopted him. Since I couldn't see, his appearance couldn't scare me. Ao was dark and furry and made little "ow, ow" sounds, so I named him Ao. Most of the time, Ao was very well behaved. Except when someone bullied me. Then he would become incredibly fierce, standing protectively in front of me, daring anyone to touch me. My stepsister had a run-in with Ao once, and now she's terrified of cats and dogs. He also didn't like other people getting close to me. I think he saw me as his one and only, and he wanted to be my one and only as well. Ao was perfect in every way, except he was a little clingy and insisted on sleeping in my arms at night. We were practically inseparable. But just as suddenly as he had appeared, one day, he disappeared. Live chat. I just remembered. Jasper is the #1 ranked boss monster on the horror world charts. He's so powerful that normal players get hit with a backlash just for saying his real name. Holy crap, you're right. I remember that monster always wears a mask, and we've only ever seen one picture of his side profile. Looking closely, it really does look like Jasper. 3 years ago, there was some unknown turmoil in the horror world, and Jasper disappeared. I thought he was dead, but it turns out he just ended up in another world. I knew it. How could a final boss die so easily? I said softly. I looked for you for so long, but I couldn't find you. I thought something had happened to you. I was so sad for a long time. Hearing this, Jasper's tone became heavy. Some audacious humans used a forbidden technique to forcefully summon me. Jasper had originally planned to reveal his true form and stay by my side forever. But an accident happened, and he was forcibly returned to the horror world. Live chat. How dare they? Whoever dared to interrupt the final boss's romance must have a 10-foot-tall weed growing on their grave by now. More than that. I remember there was a 3S rank spellcasting instance where you could summon the final boss. Then one day, the entire instance was destroyed. That must have been him. After that, no one could summon him again. Who gets it? I don't want to go to work either. I wish I could just get angry and bankrupt the company. But when I get angry, all I can do is get angry. Speaking of which, when the final boss gets mad, he really doesn't distinguish between friend or foe. Monsters don't have friends. They get stronger by devouring each other. My unfocused eyes instinctively looked down at the tentacles that were once again wrapping around my calves. A series of feather-like kisses fell on my neck, and I heard the man's cool voice in my ear. Chloe, I'm so happy you've been thinking of me. A cold breath passed over my skin, but my body grew warm. We were so close that I quickly noticed the change in him. Remembering last night's lack of control, I felt a little scared and shrank back. Jasper, I don't want to. I'm still not feeling well. Jasper's movements paused. Let me see. Realizing what he was doing, I trembled slightly, a soft sound escaping my throat. Don't do that. I instinctively tried to push his head away, but my hands were caught by his nimble tentacles, immobilizing me. My back was pressed against the cold door as I passively accepted the pleasure he gave me. In the darkness, all I could hear was his soft chuckle. Chloe, you're so sweet. Live chat. No, why did it fade to black again? This is getting ridiculous. They won't even give us a crumb this time. I have money. Just give me a chance to spend it. Where can I subscribe to the premium channel? The next morning, we gathered all the Daltons and told them we had a clue to the treasure. They were overjoyed. Really? If you can truly help us find the treasure, then you are our lucky stars. We wouldn't be opposed to taking you as our lifelong partners. Among all of them, only one person was unhappy, exuding a dark and gloomy aura. That person was Jasper. The other Daltons didn't dare go near him. Jasper's fingers were tightly intertwined with mine. His voice was gloomy. Chloe, I can't bear to let you go. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed his forehead. It's okay. I'll come see you again soon. Okay, it's a promise. Jasper's ears turned a faint red, and his long eyelashes trembled. Live chat. Who knew the final boss was so innocent? Innocent? When the pretty wife came out of her room this morning, she could barely walk straight. Sob, I don't want the pretty wife to go either. Will we see her again? Pretty wife, I hope you'll be happy when we meet again. Pretty wife, how will I live without you? As the key turned, the entrance to a basement slowly opened. Inside the basement was everything old Mr. Dalton had accumulated over the years: gold, jewelry, and antique paintings and calligraphy. Of course, there were also many monsters. The players took care of them all. When the Daltons saw the treasure, their eyes lit up, and their affection for the players soared to 80%. One by one, the players around me disappeared. The familiar electronic voice sounded in my head again. System notice. Jasper's affection for you has reached 100%. Congratulations on successfully clearing the instance. Clearance reward. All-seeing eyes. As you have reached 100% affection, the system will grant you an additional reward. A shape-shifting cane. Live chat. Holy crap, Jasper's affection for Chloe was that high? That's nothing. 100 is just the system's limit, not Jasper's. I actually think you have a point. I didn't have time to say goodbye to Jasper, or even check the details of my rewards before the horror game sent me back to the real world. When I opened my eyes again, I found that I could see. My stepsister was standing right in front of me, her face a mask of terror. What? You actually made it out alive. I smiled faintly. That's right. I'm back.